AC/DC started back in Australia in '76. What was the music situation like?
Bad. Real bad.
For example?
Well, we played like our own style of music. The country was into like things like Abba and Neil Diamond, like, you know, and you know, just that ilk of crap, like, you know.
What gave you guys the incentive, or should I say the insight, to know that up the road 2 or 3 years across the country, across the world, that your music would start vibrating and start getting people happy?
Because the people, you know, the people like rock and roll. You know, I'm talking the people like in general. You know, I guess I'm talking mainly about people like ourselves, lower middle class, upper working class, lower working class, whatever, like, you know. But we just knew what we liked, and we figured that we're not dumb, you know. So there's a whole lot of other people out there like the same thing that we like, you know. And at the time, the radio stations were pushing this Linda Ronstadt, James Taylor crap, you know. And you know, I heard some radio station in the Midwest go, and now the rock music without the noise, and played James Taylor. And
That's rock.
And I broke up. You know, I thought, you know, I mean, you know, the people aren't that. The people listening aren't that silly. You know. Why are the people playing this stuff that dumb? You know.
Really, you know, it's true. Rock and roll to me is energy music. What you guys do on stage.
Rock and roll was staged in 1939. From then between then and like 45. You know, it went through a crisis in the 60s. Like, but you know, that's history.
You're not talking about not talking about disco the crisis, are you?
Oh no, that dumb thing like everyone was called Johnny or Billy or Davy or, you know.
Doo-wah-shoo-wop-pop.
Well, I liked a bit of that, you know. Yeah, I like the Diamonds and the Shirelles and lots of things. You know. I mean, I was a kid back then. You know, I was like 11 or 12 years old. When I was like 13 years old, I knew every word to every song on the top 20. You know.
When did you start? How old were you when you started buying records?
I was just talking about that the other day. My first record that I ever bought was the Purple People Eater by
not the Big Bopper, no.
No.
Chantilly Lace.
It was after that.
Carl Perkins? No, not Carl Perkins.
Wasn't Johnny Chester? No, Johnny Chester had that.
We want to know who this is. The Purple People Eater was done. No, it's something like Carl. There's a Carl in it.
Can we have a contest over this, please?
Well, we're gonna get the name. I know. Hey,
we can offer 50 free tickets to AC/DC concerts over this one.
Who did the Chipmunk song? You remember that? The Chipmunk song?
I have no idea.
David Seville. You know Alvin the Chipmunk.
Yeah, Alvin. Yeah, but let us find out on air who recorded that Purple People Eater.
Oh, the Purple People Eater was done by. I think it is Carl.
Carl Perkins had more taste.
It wasn't Carl Perkins. Anyway, enough of the Purple People Eater. So you know
you had more taste than I had. I bought the record.
Yeah, right. My brother has that record. Well, how about some of the early rock and roll where the guitar started to, you know, the guitar at I guess it was the late '60s when the guitar started to utilize the feedback.
I used to go. I went to see the first Presley movie. It was called Love Me Tender, and that was great. And then I saw the second Presley movie, which was called Jailhouse Rock. You know. And I was sitting next to this. I mean, I had a date, and probably my first or second date, you know. And I was sitting there with my arm around this chick, you know, playing with lapels, like, you know. And Elvis gets whipped in this movie, like, you know, that whipping scene. And she starts screaming, you know. And I thought, shit, I'm not that hot, you know. And ow, 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 you know. And this is, you know, Presley getting whipped these ass off, man. So, you know.
How do you know, now they say that Elvis was under the influence of drugs during doing those movies, is that disillusioning to you?
Well, he could afford better drugs than I could, I said.
How does drugs, apart, now that you're starting, quote unquote, starting to make it, do you find, even though it's almost 1980, that you still come in contact with all sorts of drugs on the road? Not that you do them, but do you come in contact with them? Do you find it a part of the road life?
Well, they are, but like you say, I don't do them because this is 1980, and the price is just abortionate. If they'd only lower the prices, I'd be an addict.
How much is a bag of pot in Australia now?
Well, I think about maybe $50, $60, but it's good stuff.
Where is it, domestic?
Oh yeah, it's all domestic over there. There's very little stuff that comes from overseas. It's all like backyard stuff. You know?
How are the laws now? I haven't checked up recently in Australia because I guess in North Carolina, the law now is anything under an ounce is considered a misdemeanor, which isn't that serious. It's like
they tried that for a while back in Australia. Actually, they tried that in Canberra, which is the capital of Australia. You know, that's like between Sydney and Melbourne, which are major cities. You know, it's a capital, because all the politicians' kids were doing, drugs and getting busted, and it was sort of making it bad for dad or whatever. You know. So they made it like a misdemeanor there, so you could walk around the streets with up to an ounce of pot on that. You know? And then the government changed from Labor to Liberal, you know, and then they clamped down again, like, you know, and all this sort of shit. You know? And right now it's more than a misdemeanor. It's less than a like a crime, but it's more than a misdemeanor. You know.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. You know, a lot of people. For example, I have to give this as an example because it comes to mind most first. I had Frank Zappa on not too long ago, and a lot of my listeners... Was that?
He doesn't smoke drugs.
That's right, and a lot of my listeners refuse to believe that he doesn't do drugs because he's Frank Zappa. I mean, you got to do drugs. And I can tell you, being in the audience tonight, you know, it was pretty obvious, I think, even on stage. Don't you get a whiff of that on stage? Can you smell it?
I think it's the cheapest way to get stoned in the world is to do a concert in America. You get paid to do the concert, and you get stoned in the bargain. All you have to do is take deep breaths. And
I tell you, you know, the interesting thing. Let's change the subject. Highway to Hell, the 45, the 45 Highway to Hell. Right now, interesting thing going on. It was a top track, which means it was on the top 20 album cuts, getting airplay in the country. Then it started to fall. It went down to number, I guess, close to number 30. But now. And this is really very, very rare. It's back up. It's back up on the charts. In fact, tomorrow night on the Great American Radio Show, it's number 13. It's back into the top 20 after being there, falling. Now it's back.
I can't give an explanation for that, except that America is maybe waking up to itself.
Is Atlantic a good company?
Well, so far they've been good to us, yeah.
Do you think that your other albums would have done as well if you had the right promotion, or do you think you were a misunderstood group? I mean, the name AC/DC implies...
Like I said before, when we had our first albums out over here, like High Voltage and or Power Rage and Blood, you know, they were sort of saying on the air, you know, rock music without the noise and playing James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt.
Which is music, of course, but not necessarily. You're saying it's not rock, is what the point. Your argument is.
Well, it's music, yeah, but you know, but there's no such thing as rock music without noise, like, you know. Right. I mean, and noise doesn't necessarily mean, you know, things you can't listen to. It just means loud. Like
Interesting. Noise.
And you give me a concert that you've heard in the past 10, 15 years, you know, that hasn't been loud, you know.
That's right.
Just loud music, but yeah, that was this guy's sort of, you know, spiel to, I guess, attract housewives and, you know, tea towels and things.
Right. That noise thing, you know, it's like, I can remember, I guess, your family. Now, I'm assuming that when you were growing up that your parents may not have liked the kind of music that you liked.
They hated it. Like, you know, I had the loudest stereo on the block, you know. And I used to play, you know, Little Richard and Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly and, you know, all those guys, you know.
Loud. There's something to be said about loud.
There was... I mean, I didn't know because I was a kid, like I was 8, 9, 10, you know, and to me at that time, music didn't mean a shit to me unless it was loud, you know.
I went through that stage. I still like it that way.
It had to be a feeling, like, you know. And I used to sing in the shower, you know, and my mom used to say to me, "Can't you stop trying to sound like Elvis Presley, you know? You know, is that your big thing or what? Like Doris Day maybe, but Elvis Presley, forget it, like, you know." You know.
What do you see rock and roll in the next couple of years? Like your next album, do you see any changes as far as direction? Are you going to mellow out, so to speak, just to show your versatility?
Well, as you know, with this last album, we didn't mellow out. We played the same rock music.
I know.
We played it with just maybe 2 or 3 more touches to it, like a bit of finesse, maybe. See, in the past, like when George recorded us, like George Young back in Australia, he just recorded us as we played. Like there was no sort of rounding the edges off. It was just as it come out, was put down, like With Robert John Langer, or Mutt Langer to his friends, he put that same sound down, but he just rounded 2 or 3 edges, so it doesn't take us away from what we were before, right. But it just puts an added touch to it. Like he was so good that he could do that. Like,
the sharpness, the clearness is what.
But he couldn't take us away from what we are. I mean, no one can, but he just added, and this extra dimension, which is why you're talking to me now.
Yeah, I want to ask you about a whole lot of Rosie.
If you didn't do that, you wouldn't have the time to.
That's right. I mean, obviously, what he did was do it. Well, I would, even if it was your second album, I was impressed with that. Going back to those, or if you want Blood.
Well, you can be on our coach, and we play our albums occasionally. And there's not one album that we've done since our concept that I don't like, regardless of who has produced it,
Is there a story behind Whole Lotta Rosie?
Yeah, she was about 255 pounds.
I had a feeling. What's the story on this?
Well, I was in her apartment, and she had a girlfriend who was like 155 pounds. And I thought I was sweet with her, So I laid back in the bed, I pulled my pants off, I'm lying there naked. And I said, well, who's it going to be, And this Rosie goes, me. And I was too scared to say no,
Were you able to?
Well, I'm sure this will make the air.
Everyone's afraid that I'm going to edit. I'm not going to edit.
Well, I think I heard. I think she said thank you in the morning. I'm not sure if that was for the tip or for what I did for her.
I mean, I'm sure now. I'm sure she's heard the song by now and knows that's for her.
Well, we saw one time just after the song was released in Tasmania, where she comes from, and there's like this, you can imagine a hall with 2,000 people, and they're all like average about 5'2", I guess, And it's like Mount Everest in the Himalayas, and there she was, about 10 people from the front of the crowd, from the stage, going wah, So I guess she enjoyed the song.
That was a good song. That's a good song. Let There Be Rock. What did he say? I didn't catch that. The mic.
I coughed, I think.
Oh, I see. Okay. This is great. Let me ask you some more questions. You're doing so well. Can I ask you about the song "Let There Be Rock"? Now that's a religious song to a lot of people.
Well, it was to me because we had this. I came up with the title about 2 years ago. "Let There Be Rock," and everyone went, "Oh yeah, great title," But what do we write "Let There Be Rock" about? So I went down to just right underneath the recording studio. There's a bookshop. And I bought a Bible, I bought a Bible. Please don't let that stop my career, please. But I bought this Bible, and the book of Genesis is, in the beginning. And I thought, fuck, what a great title. what a great start to a song. In the beginning, I mean, it's like that Rod Stewart song. Rod Stewart did that song. Yeah, wake up, Maggie. Wake up, Maggie. I got something. That thing. And the opening line is just so strong. It just has to grab your attention. The rest can be literally shit. But the first line was like in the beginning, and then the brainwave. The second verse was, and then it came to pass.
Smart.
And my mother's a Christian. She's a lovely lady, and she's a Christian, and she goes to church every Sunday. She said, someone's going to pray for you.
Has she heard your music recently? I mean, has she put out one of your records on her record player?
She heard the new album. Oh, she has them all, But before the new album come out, she says, oh, yeah, she rang me up. She said, oh, here you got this new album. She said, what's it called? I said, Highway to Hell. Then she said, Trust You.
It's funny, the significance of that song, I thought, besides knowing it was religious in a sense, I knew that was obvious in the beginning, but
it's not meant to be religious.
I realized that, but in the sense that
like religion is so hypocritical, why shouldn't I write songs with can you pat my back, please? Religious meanings,
Absolutely, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it seemed to me that the title "Let There Be Rock" meant, in a sense, that you were saying something like there was a movement against rock, or there was a suppression of rock. Okay, now that's what
I've talked about all night tonight.
Right. This was the feeling that with the Abba craze in Australia, for example, if you want to be specific.
Abba had like 5 hit records in the top 10 within like the period of a month in Australia, and they did a tour there. And they sold out. They must have made like millions touring Australia. They played one concert in Melbourne, which holds about maybe 100,000 people, And they had tickets, like you could buy your air ticket, 2 nights in the hotel, and your flight back for $150, Of which about 70 went to Abba, So they made a whole lot of money. Like ABBA, Australia was the first place in the whole world that ABBA broke top 10 wise, and they still haven't broken it in America, I think they're kind of finished.
Yeah, they were so well, in my opinion, they have a nice style, but they're so overproduced and so la 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 la, it's hard to put that in words.
Yeah, they were, well, Australia's a kind of susceptible sort of country, Yeah, even a few people like us.
Do you feel that you would be compatible with, or you would feel like living in this country, or do you feel like you get along with the people here? To the point where you'd like to live here?
Well, I am going to live here. I'm going to buy a house up in North California. It's America. What? No more need be said. Like, it's America.
And now we're happy to say that Highway. Here's another group too that I've been into for a long time. Saving your albums, the old albums, knowing someday I would be able to give that airplay and people would recognize who it was. I'm really happy to say that your album on Billboard. What's that?
Is that the Monkees?
I'm not talking about the Monkees. I'm talking about AC/DC. But the album now is literally a smash hit. Bullet.
Getting close, But it's still got a bullet. The upsetting thing is when it goes from being number 10 with a bullet to being number 12 with an anchor. Then you got to worry.
Got to worry, but right now you're not even close to that.
Yeah. My back manager even calls me Bon, and people smile at me when I talk to them.
It's a good feeling. The feeling of being
more money, you see.
Are you basically a shy person? As far as strangers.
Yeah, it depends on the amount I drink,
By the way, were you on stage tonight perfectly straight, or is this, you seem to be so loose. Is this your natural personality you have? Or?
I was drunk.
You're not serious.
I'm still drunk. I'm talking to you, aren't I?
We're talking with Bon here. AC/DC, a rock and roll group from Australia, now an international success. High energy rock and roll. The kind of rock and roll that brings out the goosebumps, the sweat.
Do you have a sister?
No, I don't have a sister.
Wants to travel overnight to Wheeling, West Virginia.
When are you leaving?
Right now.
There's a girl out in the steps out there waiting.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe she wants to be walked on.
Maybe she wants to be walked on?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I caught that. Oh, that's incredible. Bon, I don't want to take too much more of your time. We can go on and on and on, but it was a pleasure talking to you. I see a lot of success in your future, and keep the good music coming, man, because it feels good.
It's a pleasure talking to someone who wants to talk to me.
How about some final comments to America? Because there's a good chance this will be heard coast to coast.
To America? Wake up, America. AC/DC.
How did the name AC/DC come about? And right away, people going to say, "Oh, this is one of those groups that are, you know."
Kind of funny, like it. Well, I mean, like it.
What's this AC/DC stuff?
No, it's straight shoulder, from the, alternate current, direct current. It's kind of boring when you explain it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of high voltage when you hear it,
Thank you, Brian.